So was Fireburst a good League starter? Unfortunately, the answer's a bit complicated. Much like how Path of Exile is quite complicated, and usually you can't boil the entire game down to a POB. So while I will be including a POB for this build in the description below, I urge you to both watch the full video and take the POB numbers with a grain of salt. Because, just for example, the build's a lot tankier than POB would make it look. This is because the build uses chill as a defensive layer, and you can't really see enemies moving slower so they don't get to hit you. At least not in POB. When you're fighting a boss in Path of Exile, it is blindingly apparent. Not that I particularly advise this build if your goal is to fight bosses. On the other hand, the DPS in POB looks higher than it actually is in-game, because POB assumes perfect consistency and perfect uptimes on everything. So take the POB with a giant grain of salt. Now, putting that aside, how has the build played, and is it a disappointment? Well, yes, it's a disappointment. It's a disappointment because I'm pretty sure half of the skills that are supposed to be buffed by Ignite are actually nerfed right now because they don't work with Elemental Overload. I really wanted to use Fire Trap as a nice single target band-aid. Fire Trap kind of sucks, because Fire Trap Ignite, which was my secret backup plan if Fireburst didn't do enough single target, doesn't trigger Elemental Overload right now, at all. Hopefully this has or will be addressed in a patch. This is day 6. It's not super scientific yet. This isn't a finished build by any means. Take everything with a grain of salt. I want to stress that a lot. Now that said, how has the build gone to actually play? If you put bosses aside and just pretend they don't exist, really good actually. By taking all the shapers on Elementalist, I become Shaper, and therefore get to erase my enemies from existence. I use Chill to slow everything down to a crawl, Temporal Chains, which I might swap for Ellie Weakness to get a little more damage, to slow them even further, and then Ignite to burn them to death, while Shock scales the damage significantly. Beyond that, I'm also completely shredding their res by using the various new res shred methods along with fire exposure. So in this regard, trash just kind of melts. I don't really have to do very much. I can kind of walk through, and my Herald of Thunder will clear for me. Defensively, the build feels quite good. Scourge is, of course, terrifyingly rippy, and in red tier maps, I would not ever shift without Vol Molten Shell being up as a defensive option. If you position badly, if you get hit by a Screamer, if you get hit by a Divine Ire Beam, you're just going to get blown up without the VMS. Make sure to have it. That said, if you're in lower tier maps, maybe you're just in yellows, the build feels nearly invincible. If you don't have very many Scourge stacks, the build feels insanely good. If you're just fighting normal maps, or if you're delving, the build feels really good defensively. And I think it'll feel a lot better once I get myself a good Brass Dome. The HP stack from the Calms has been a great band-aid, but it is just a band-aid. Also, if you value really smooth gameplay without having to hit buttons, then Fireburst is absolutely the build for you. Because the most buttons that I have to hit a lot of the time are Flame Dash and my Life Flask. Though because I have a Recover Life on Kill node now, I don't have to hit the Life Flask nearly so much. Usually just to remove a bleed. This is a super smooth build. If I were to use a Stygian Vise to get permaphasing due to phasing on kill, it would probably be a little smoother. But I found that the defensive benefit from Pyroshock Clasp giving me a lot of Fizz taken as has allowed me to use a unique chest and is much more flexible than alternative options. Though I do think my ultimate endgame is probably going to be a rare Stygian Vise with cooldown recovery speed, as a lot of the things that Dan did in his Fireburst Elementalist about 2 leagues ago still hold true today, such as lowering the cooldown of Fireburst to get more consistent high damaging ignites. Another elephant in the room is, because I'm using Replica Emberwake, I deal a lot more damage, but I don't get nearly as consistent damage. This hasn't really been a problem for me. I have enough Ignite duration in enough places. In fact, I'm considering taking a couple more Ignite duration nodes just to help smooth this out. But if you find your damage is very inconsistent, especially when you're less geared, when I first swapped over, this was problematic, then be sure to keep in mind that extra duration is really easy to get because you can just put efficacy support in your links. And you can do this in place of the Swift Affliction, which means you'll be using green, red, blue, 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 which is also really easy to color. Another big feature of a build is how much non-damaging ailment effect I've gotten to stack. I'm not hitting very hard. After all, I'm an Ignite build. They're not really known for nuking enemies for millions of damage. But even if I'm fighting a boss like Cirrus, I'll be able to inflict a 39% chill and 45% shock. This is entirely due to non-damaging ailment effect. Right now I have a significant investment in that, but as I get more pieces of Elder Gear, my Blasphemer's Grasp will give me enough non-damaging ailment effect that I'll be able to swap that out and invest into it less and have it more as kind of a passive hidden stat on all of my items. Overall, I wouldn't say I've been enjoying Scourge that much as a League mechanic. The base game changes are great, and I'm really looking forward to playing all of those in future leagues. Scourge itself is mediocre. It's the worst designed league I've seen in a long time, because ultimately if you get enough stacks, especially in really juiced maps, defenses don't matter. At 200 or 300% more damage, enemies are just going to start one-shotting you, especially since that is a 2 to 300% more damage multiplier on top of all their other damage multipliers from your map mods, or your Sextants, or your Atlas Awakening bonus. That said, the chill is an amazing defensive layer in this regard. As long as the enemies can be slowed, they're much less likely to hit you, and what can't hit you can't one-shot you. Similarly, if I could build Freeze-In, that would be even better, but currently I don't really have a way to do that unfortunately, though I will be looking into it in the future to see if I can somehow find one. For where your defenses matter, they work really well, and because the build doesn't require you to hit any buttons, if you need to fight a boss, yes, it will be slow. My Cirrus fight was 10 minutes long. But it's also relatively safe because the boss is so slow that it's really easy to dodge their telegraphed abilities. This is especially true for something like a Guardian, like I demonstrated earlier, where Phoenix just kind of wasn't doing anything. If you're looking for a build that's super smooth to map, that doesn't require a lot of button presses, and has the safety to let you not make mistakes, and is reasonably forgiving and defensive, this is a good build. I don't regret League starting it, but I do wish it had been less bugged. I do wish I could use Fire Trap and actually have it do proper damage, because it benefited from elemental overload. On the other hand, if you want a 10 million DPS, just nuke the boss because you don't trust yourself to not stand in everything build, this probably isn't for you. You are going to have to dodge. You are going to have to fight bosses for multiple minutes. Although that said, you'll still probably complete the map faster than a lot of people because you clear the trash so quickly and you clear the Scourge so efficiently. So that is my build update for my Ignite Arma Brand Elementalist. If you're interested in seeing what this becomes in the endgame, well, I can't promise I'm going to do that because I might reroll into something else. It's all going to depend on how Scourge is changed over the next few weeks and what ends up happening with elemental overload. But if I do continue to play it, I will post a full build showcase or build guide sometime in the near future, probably about a week from now. And if I don't, if you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell, you'll see what I reroll to, which is probably going to be much better at bossing and much better at single target. But for now, I have enjoyed the build a lot. I really like how it can just easily passively farm, and I really like how well it delves. In fact, I've been enjoying Delve as a whole, and may focus on that more this league than I have in the past. Again, if you want to see the POB, it is down in the description below, and you can always pull from my profile as I'm constantly going to be tweaking things and upgrading the gear. What do you think? Is this build going to be up your alley? And if you started as Arma Brand Ignite, does this help you reroll into Fireburst? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.